This presentation is brought to you by the Beljanski Foundation. Over 50 years of research towards curing cancer the natural way.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for having me today. Thank you, Alex, for your kind words of introduction. Before I start, I would like to ask you, who here had ever received a diagnosis of cancer or know somebody who has received a diagnosis of cancer? Yeah, you are many of you. And it is not surprising. Actually, 1 out of 2 women and 1 out of 3 women is going to receive a diagnosis of cancer in their lifetime, according to the World Health Organization nowadays. And unfortunately, this is not working. Okay. Okay. And unfortunately, this number is going to double by 2030, according to the World Health Organization. Meaning, everybody by then is going to receive a diagnosis of cancer. Doesn't mean that, everybody will going to die of cancer, but definitely, this is going to become really from serious problem to real pandemic. So it is time to ask ourselves, what happened to the so-called war on cancer that President Nixon signed back in 1971? What happened to all this money, to those billions that have been, poured into research? What about all those marches with pink ribbons, blue ribbons to arrive here? Maybe it's time to look at cancer differently and ask ourselves how to win the war on cancer. This is exactly the question that was, on the cover of magazine, of Fortune magazine, back already in 2004. And they said we could win it with molecules that would be less toxic and more selective. Very interestingly, this is exactly what my late father, Dr. Mirko Beljanski, was already working on at the Pasteur Institute back in the 80s. He's now considered one of the fathers of environmental medicine because he looked at the environment as a cause and a solution to cancer when everybody at the time was looking for genes and genetic explanations and creating genetic drugs that would lead to patents that would bring a lot of money to pharmaceutical companies. He looked at the DNA. He was a PhD in molecular biology. He looked at the DNA to find explanations. And he made the observation when everybody was looking for mutations of nucleotides. Here, the nucleotides are the little gray grains that are the strands of the DNA. And he looked at that and said, no, cancer does not only result from mutations, can result from mutations, but not only that. He made the observation that there is a fundamental difference between a healthy DNA and a cancer DNA. Healthy DNA, the 2 strands of the DNA are nicely interwoven. Cancer DNA, whether it is a plant, animal, human cancer DNA, there are those big loops that appear. The strands of the DNA have been stretched so much that the hydrogen bonds, which are supposed to keep together the strands, have broken. And when it's broken, there is a lot of space for the replication hormones to be directly available to the replication sites. And then that's why duplication happens much faster And then you have those tumors that happen with cancer cells, not happen with healthy cells. Broken, you see? So he created, based on this theory, he created a test he called the oncotest that allowed him to test for environmental molecules that would induce cancer, and he was recognized them by recognizing how they would create those loops within the strands of the DNA. And then he had the idea to use the same test to look for natural molecules that would do exactly the opposite, that would prevent the duplication, the opening of the loops, and then the duplication of the DNA, of cancer DNA. And he found two plant extracts able to do so, Paupera, that grows in South America, and Revolfia vomitoria, that grows in Africa. And very interestingly, the molecules that come from those two extracts are quite similar with a negatively and a positively nitrogen. He had the idea to test those extracts on different cancer cell lines, since the theory that it was working at the level of the DNA is that it's not going to be organ or gender specific. We have one DNA from head to toe. So at the Pasteur Institute, he tested on different kinds of cancer cells. You have here adenocarcinoma cell line, which is a liver, and you can see that the Paupera in blue and the Revolfia vomitoria in green are both doing a quite good job at destroying, inhibiting the duplication of those cancer cells. You go here at thyroid, and you can see that both extracts, again, are doing a good job at inhibiting the duplication of those cells. And here we have breast cancer cell lines, and again, a very nice inhibition observed within hours in the laboratory. What's more, he made the observation that those extracts are selective to cancer cells. Not only they prevent the duplication of cancer DNA, but they work only on cancer DNA. So here you have a healthy cell, astrocyte, an healthy cell of the brain, and you can see that the Paupera extract, which happens to be naturally fluorescent, so you see the light, remains outside the membrane of the healthy cell. On the other hand, here you have glioblastoma cells, which are cancerous cells, and you can see that the light is penetrating the nucleus and nucleoli of those cells. It's even more visible on the UV light that really the extract is targeting those cancerous cells and is not wandering anywhere else. That means selectivity of action that translates into very low toxicity. Because if you do not have cancerous cells, well, you are going to eliminate the product within a matter of hours. Mirko Beljanski published everything. He left actually a legacy of 133 peer-reviewed papers, which got the interest of a lot of French doctors. And a lot of people in France started to take the products. Actually, there are even now, 25 years later, there are still people gathering every year to share their story of survival by using the products that stem from the work of Mirko Beljanski. That got the attention even of this magazine, which is located in Los Angeles, said, "We survived cancer thanks to Mirko Beljanski, and you can too." The most famous patient my father had to deal with was former French President François Mitterrand. He was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer when he was in the middle of his second term. The surgeon saw that the cancer had metastatized everywhere, and said the president is not going to finish his second term. But Mitterrand had a mistress. And the mistress knew of a good doctor who was using those extracts for prostate cancer. Mitterrand started to take the extracts. And you can see how the press, the French press, reported that, 1 year later, Mitterrand went from something which was, obviously sick to doing much, much better. And the press said, c'est un miracle, it's a miracle. Of course, it was not a miracle, it was a fact that the treatment was working. A lot of powerful people got really, really annoyed that the French president was doing better, that they were losing the opportunity of seizing power. They were already thinking, of distributing themselves ministries and so on, and then the president is getting better. And also they were infuriated that natural compounds could do better than official drugs. They just could not stand it. So they sent a SWAT team to destroy my father's laboratory and to really eradicate everything which was, known about this research. I was a lawyer working in a law firm in New York at the time when I discovered that. This is really what started me on my journey, because I said, this cannot be allowed. You cannot let barbarians destroy knowledge. This cannot exist. They raided everything. There was no more Beljanski products available in France. People marched in the streets of Paris and other cities saying, nous voulons les produits Beljanski efficaces and non-toxic. We want the Beljanski products efficient and non-toxic. They could not care less. My father passed away without having the products available for himself when, as a result, we believe, of the radiations he received, he got acute myeloid leukemia. So I started this foundation in New York, the Beljanski Foundation, to carry on with the research with those compounds that my father had discovered, because based on my experience, based on what I had seen growing up, I knew they could make a difference for people. The foundation works by giving grants to academics, to institutions, to do research. And the first opportunity I had to work with an American institution was with Dr. Aaron Katz at Columbia University. He was at the time the head of holistic urology. Of course, he had heard of the Mitterrand story, and he was very eager to try those compounds on his patients. He first started to see, on men with elevated PSA with no cancer, just, a positive negative biopsy. And he wanted to see if the product would be well tolerated. That was the first thing he wanted to do. Men were followed for 12 months. Men with a negative biopsy but elevated PSA were followed for 12 months. They received a mix of Paupera and Revolfia vomitoria extracts. And it was an escalation dose. Nobody had any side effects. Nobody had any toxicity as a result of the treatment. But they also, their PSA go down, and they also, their urinary symptoms diminish. So Dr. Katz was lecturing about that, and he was very pleased about this study. He went on after that to confirm on prostate cancer that the Pao Pereira and the Revolfia vomitoria were both also able to destroy prostate cancer cells. We moved on after that to Kansas University Medical Center for ovarian and pancreatic cancer. This is advanced prostate cancer. Even advanced prostate cancer is working very well. So we have precancerous cells, cancerous cells, advanced cancer cells, which have even metastasis and do not respond anymore to hormonal treatment. Pao Pereira is still working on those very, very aggressive cancer cells. Dr. Katz was very happy with those results. He was lecturing one day and got the interest of Dr. Katz of Dr. Driscoll at Kansas University Medical Center. And she said, is there a possibility to study those plants for other things than prostate? And I said, yes, of course, because it's not gender or organ specific. So we worked on ovarian cancer at Kansas University Medical Center, and we were again able to show that Pao Pereira alone suppressed tumor growth by 79% and decreased the volume of acids by 55%, just alone. Acids is very important because it's a liquid that builds in the abdomen when there is ovarian cancer. It's a very, very bad prognosis. So just being able to do that was significant. But there is more. When combined with carboplatin, which is the standard of care, I mean, the tumor inhibition reached 97%, and the acids was completely eradicated. This is huge, huge result. We went on with Revolfia vomitoria, and again, a very nice synergy of action with carboplatin was observed. You know, we reduced the tumor burden by 87 to 90% and acid volume by 89% to 97%. So it worked very, very, very well. We went on with pancreatic cancer, both on Pao Pereira and Revolfia vomitoria. And then we went on with cancer stem cells. That's very major breakthrough because there is nothing for major cancer stem cells. They resist chemotherapy. So that's why you get chemotherapy. They are able to recreate a new tumor within a few years. So we saw that the Pao Pereira and the Revolfia vomitoria are able to inhibit even cancer stem cells. Here, pancreatic cancer stem cells and ovarian cancer stem cells, both of them. And that led to two papers. The study was done by gavage, meaning orally, just like, you know, a supplement would be. And in mice, we were able to eradicate cancer stem cells, Pao Pereira and Revolfia vomitoria. This is the most recent research of the Beljanski Foundation. All the story is available, the story of my father, this research, everything is available in the book I published, and I want to thank you very, very much for your attention today. Thank you.